Tonight, we are talking about the Carmelo Anthony case. Welcome back, Viral Crimes with Jocelyn family. Listen, you already know there is something wrong in this world today. And if you're not part of this family, it just may be you. So let me tell you guys this. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And do not meet us there, beat us there. So I took my time with this case. I didn't want it was so much going on with this case. I wanted to wait till the dust settled just a little bit before I discussed this, and I wanted to do my research, and I didn't want to get anything wrong. So, you guys, come onto the channel. Let's chat. Let's talk about this case. So, this case, as we all know, a lot of what I'm saying is not going to be new to many of you guys' ears, but it's just really breaking it down and talking about it. What is your thoughts? How did you feel? How did it affect you? Because at the end of the day, both of these young men were children. They were underage. Um, so this in case involved two teenagers, Austin Metcalf, a 17-year-old student, who was an athlete, which I did read that he was a quite a big kid. He was a big guy, whose life was taken at a high school track meet, and Karmelo Anthony, who was later convicted of his deletion and sentenced to 35 years in prison. I do these cases a lot. I want to be really soft with this. I have seen people delete 5 and 6 people and not get that crime, that sentence. We watched what's his name, Dr. Murray with Michael Jackson. He got 2 years. So 35 years for a 17-year-old, when he didn't have a criminal record, there was no background of him um, being in the system. Are definitely not here to spread rumors. So that's why I said this is an open forum. You guys come in, you guys talk, chat with me. Let's get our feelings out in this case. So we're going to be watching several videos tonight. Or what time is it? This evening. I have a few lined up, a few news reporting, some other content creators, speaking about this. So we're going to take it slow. So tonight we're here to look at facts, talk about what was presented, discuss the self-defense case, the conviction, the sentencing, and why so many people still have strong opinions about this case. Now, we all know that they have his lawyers, his representatives. They're funding it all. We have allegedly, who do we have? We have, why am I drawing a blank today? We have Cardi B. We have Rihanna, allegedly. We did have, what is that? Charles, what's his name? Charleston White. But I think he pulled out his funding. So we have a few heavy hitters behind him. So let's see where that goes. So sometimes you have to let the smoke settle before you can really talk about a situation clearly. And now that the trial is over, the appeal process has started, we want to ask some real questions. Was this murder, you guys? Or was this self-defense? Was this a teenager confrontation that escalated beyond repair? Was justice served? Or are there still things that need to be reviewed? I have one thing that sits in my mind. I'm not going to say it right now, but this is where I not really am on the fence, but I'm like, why? Why was this here? Why was there a tool here that caused this? Now, back in my day, we're going to knuckle up. We're going to get in there. We're going to fight. We're going to do whatever we have to do. But why was this the answer? Okay, if you're in fear, you get your butt kicked, you go home, and you talk about it the next day. But why did it have to be so final? So I'm gonna get into this one content creator I thought was really interesting the way he broke this down. So here we go. Let's do the equal size, you guys. Get my headsets in.
What was supposed to be a regular high school track meet in Frisco, Texas, turned into a tragedy that would make headlines across the country. A dispute between two teenagers ended with a 17-year-old dead. Austin Metcalf was fatally stabbed, and another teenager, Karmelo Anthony, was arrested and charged with murder. At the time, Karmelo was also 17 years old. He was a high school student, an athlete, and according to his family, someone with no prior criminal record. But after that day, his life completely changed. Courtroom story. Some people believe Karmelo acted in self-defense. Other people believe what happened to Austin Metcalf was murder, and that it should have never escalated that far. And because of the race of both teenagers involved, this case quickly turned into one of the most emotionally charged stories in the country. So in this video, we're going to break down what allegedly happened between him and Austin Metcalf. The core facts in this video are based on official reporting, court records, and the arrest report. So let's get started. The story starts in Frisco, Texas on April 2nd, 2025. At around 10:01 a.m. in the morning, Frisco police received a dispatch call about a stab.
Okay. For us, I'm just going to start with Karmelo Anthony was a 17-year-old student from Centennial High School in Frisco, Texas. Austin Metcalf was a 17-year-old student athlete from Memorial High School. On April 2nd, 2025, both were at a high school district track meet when a confrontation happened under a team tent during a rainy day. It says witnesses said Austin asked Karmelo to leave the Memorial team's tent. The situation escalated and Karmelo ended up taking out a weapon, and we all know what happened. Austin did pass despite emergency efforts. Karmelo admitted what he did, and he claimed he acted in self-defense. It also states a Collin County jury later found Karmelo Anthony guilty of Metcalf's deletion, and he was sentenced to 35 years. The jury also rejected the defense of sudden passion argument that was argued on behalf of Karmelo, which could have lowered the punishment range. So that was thrown out, okay? The case had been emotional and controversial because people disagree on whether this was a deletion or whether it was self-defense. Like I said, I get it. But why was there a weapon? Where did a weapon come from? And why was it a part of this situation? That's the only thing that gets me. There could have been all types of things that happened. But why was this weapon even with you? You're in high school. Why are you walking around with this? All right, we're going to get into this, and I'll go back and forth, and we're going to discuss this. Hopefully, we can get the chat going. Like I said, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and turn on your notifications so you never miss a live from your girl, Jocelyn. And if you're not part of this family, you may be part of the problem. So listen, join us now before we blow up so big. So let me do the Fair Use Act. Let me get that out the way right now as well, just to cover the channel, you guys. You know how that goes. Okay, housekeeping is done. Let's keep going, you guys.
At David Kirkendall Stadium, a school stadium located on Frisco Independent School District property, short for FISD. According to the arrest report, the call note said an athlete had been stabbed. The suspect was described as a black male wearing a gray hoodie and blue sweatpants. One of the first officers to respond was Eduardo Cortez, a Staley school resource officer, basically an officer assigned to the school. After hearing the call over the radio, he immediately left his office and ran across the Staley Middle School parking lot toward the southwest entrance of the stadium. When he got inside, two high school-age students told him the victim was on the north end of the stadium, near the bleachers, under the Memorial High School tent. So Officer Cortez made his way toward the visitor side of the stadium. As he got closer, he saw multiple people under the Memorial High School tent. And once he reached the north side bleachers, an adult male on the track pointed out the person police were looking for. The person was later identified as Karmelo Anthony. According to the officer, Karmelo was wearing a gray hooded sweater and dark-colored Nike pants. At this point, the officer had not witnessed what happened himself. He was responding to what had just been reported. An athlete had been stabbed, and the suspected person was still at the stadium. At this point in the report, Officers still had to figure out exactly where the weapon was, but later witness accounts would describe the weapon as a black knife. The following happened afterwards. According to the arrest report, Karmelo was on the track near the north end of the stadium. There was a chain link fence separating him from Officer Cortez.
You know what they're saying, that every school that was here at this track meet did have their own tent. Okay? So they're saying from 8 to 1500 hours on April 2nd, the track meet did begin. The incident happened, like we stated, on April 2nd, but the weather conditions were not good, I guess, which caused, they said the rain caused confusion. Some students were under tents. It said reports say every school had a tent except for Centennial, which was where Karmelo Anthony's school, he attended school. That means Centennial students did not have the same shelter setup as other teams had. Why? Who knows? What is this Centennial school? I need to research that. So it says, so now picture the scene. You guys, let's picture this. A crowded track meet. Rain is coming down. It's pouring. Students are trying to find shelter. Coaches are spread out. Students are moving around, and the team's tent being used almost like private team areas. Is that fair? Where is the compassion? Okay, let's just go with that one. That is one of the key pieces in this case. Whether the memorial team tent was just a place to get out of the rain, or whether it was considered the memorial team space. But like I said, where is the compassion? You see these other children without a tent. Why not welcome the men? Now that right there, is it a crime? No. Morally incorrect? I will say probably yes. Like I said, this is one of the key pieces with me. So, chat, at a school event, do you think team tents should be treated like private team space? Like it's their home, you can't get in, the door's locked, you knock, if I don't open, don't enter. And if you enter into my tent, into my home, whatever happens, happens. Or should any student be able to get under it during a bad weather day? Like I said, is it a crime not to let them in? Well, morally, incorrect, maybe, you know. So let's keep going.
So the officer gave him instructions to keep his hands up in the air. And during that moment, before the officer even questioned him about what happened, Karmelo allegedly said out loud, "I was protecting myself." Officer Cortez then asked him if he had any weapons, and Karmelo said no. The officer patted him down while they walked along the fence, but he did not find any weapons on him. As the officer continued walking Karmelo off the track, Karmelo allegedly said, "He put his hands on me." At that point, Officer Cortez detained Karmelo in handcuffs and had him sit down on the ground. Another officer, Officer Ricci, had arrived on scene by then. Cortez conducted another pat-down, and after Karmelo gave consent to be searched, police still did not find any weapons on him. But while Karmelo was sitting on the ground, Officer Cortez advised over the radio that he had the alleged suspect. And according to the report, Karmelo responded by saying, "I'm not alleged, I did it." After that, Officer Cortez and Officer Ricci walked Karmelo toward a patrol vehicle near the northeast gate of the stadium. And as they were walking him to the squad car, Karmelo was described as very emotional. During that walk, he allegedly said, "He put his hands on me. I told him not to." Officer Cortez made it clear in the report that he did not question Karmelo about the incident while escorting him to the patrol vehicle. Once Karmelo was placed in the back seat, the officer noticed fresh blood on Carmelo's left middle finger. He then acknowledged the blood out loud so it would be captured on his body-worn.
Let's read this, you guys. We don't want to go past this too quickly. It says, while the suspect was in the back seat, I noticed I noticed blood on his left middle finger. I verbally acknowledged that I saw the blood out loud so that it would be captured on body cam. So we're going to go back to 1500 hours. Okay. We're a little behind this video for a purpose. It's the reason why I'm doing it this way. So it states at some point, Karmelo Anthony ended up under the Memorial High School team tent. Austin Metcalf was from Memorial High School. Trial reporting says Austin was viewed as the leader. Okay. So that lets you know that there may have been some arrogance there. He's the man, okay, on his team. And his coach had asked him and another athlete to step up and be leaders that day. So a good leader would have said, come on in and get out the rain. The coach knew. So why did the coach say, I want you to be the leader? Let's ask ourselves that question too, you guys. So it says, when Karmelo was under Memorial's tent, Austin reportedly told him to leave. Why? Why? Who was he hurting? I don't make me understand this. So it says the prosecution view was that Karmelo was somewhere he was not supposed to be. I don't understand that. He was not supposed to be, refused to leave, escalated the situation, and had a weapon hidden. So in order for him to come in there, he's got the weapon hidden. There had to be intention. There was no intention here. First of all, did he know it was going to rain? No. Did he know who the coach placed as the leaders at that time? No. So right there, we knew there was no intention. Did he know Metcalf? No. Did he know he was going to be there? No. So that's why I said this goes so many different ways. It's so hard to just say he was wrong or he was wrong. Okay, so it also states that the defense view was that Karmelo was a teenager trying to get out of the rain. Yes. Sitting down. Yes. Surrounded by other students. Yes. And felt threatened when the confrontation turned physical. I can clearly understand that. He's now surrounded by a whole bunch of people he does not know. Okay. So, little intimidating, of course. Should have went this far with this type of violence? No. But let's keep going. Said that the Vince, sorry, I can't talk today, but I'm getting it together. So it says, so from the very beginning, both sides saw the same general moment very differently. Neutral lines that might have been crossed. So let's go through this. This is where we have to separate facts from interpretation, okay? The fact is, there was a confrontation. We know that. It was under the tent. We know that. The disagreement is over who escalated it. Okay. Karmelo walks in. It's raining. He's trying to get out the rain. Everybody's scurrying. Everybody's running. He gets underneath there. He's obviously not starting a confrontation. He's just trying to take cover. Let's start there. What Karmelo reasonably believed in that moment and whether this force was justified, who knows? But I don't think that he came in there with the intention to start this melee. I don't believe that. So at 2200 hours, the confrontation, witnesses testified that Karmelo was told to leave the tent more than once. But why? Why was he told to leave the tent? There was testimony that words were exchanged. One phrase that came up in trial coverage was, touch me and see what happens. The prosecution argued that language was a threat and showed provocation. Touch me? How would it say yo, lay hands on me and let's see what happens. Now, mind you, that whatever that means to one person, it may mean we going at it or who knows, okay? The defense argued it could be viewed as a warning. Basically, don't put your hands on me. Facts. Definitely. I agree with that. They state that this is a major issue because self-defense cases often come down to whether the person claiming self-defense reasonably believed force was immediately necessary and whether they provoked the encounter. Now, could Karmelo have just walked out? Yes. But he probably was saying to himself, why? Why do I have to leave? What am I doing wrong? We're going to stop this at we're at 2200 hours on that day of April 2nd, 2025. Okay. So let's come down here. I want to keep together. So, chat, I have a question. When someone says, touch me and see what happens, do you hear that as a threat or a warning or both? I'm trying to touch me. Listen, I've not had people say that to me several times. I'm in high school. It happens. But I don't believe there's a weapon involved. That's the thing. Where did it come from and why did you have it? Okay, let's keep going with this content creators video.
Camera. And while Karmelo was in the back seat, he allegedly asked the officer, is he going to be okay? At that point, police confirmed his identity as Karmelo Anthony through the information he provided and through the school database. Once his identity was confirmed, officers were told to transport him to the Frisco Police Department jail. And again, Officer Cortez wrote that he did not question Karmelo about the incident at that point. The story then continues at the Frisco jail. According to the report, when Karmelo arrived at the jail, he was escorted into the intake area, where jail staff changed him out of the clothes he had been wearing.
This is the content creators. It's going in and out. I did not watch this because I like to react accordingly.
And into jail attire. Officer Cortez wrote that he stayed with jail staff during that process. The clothes Karmelo had been wearing were then placed into an evidence bag, and Officer Cortez maintained possession of those clothes after Karmelo was placed into the jail cell. After that, Officer Cortez and another officer, Hancock, returned to the patrol vehicle, which was in the Frisco Police Department's secure jail entrance. Officer Cortez then placed Karmelo's clothes in the trunk area of the patrol vehicle. The clothes remained there until the Frisco Police Department crime scene technician, Kay Dillard, took possession of them. So by that point, Karmelo was in custody, his clothing had been collected as evidence, and the case was moving from the immediate arrest into the evidence gathering stage. But Officer Cortez's narrative wasn't the only account included in the arrest report. There was also a supplemental report from Officer Allison Ricci, and she was mentioned earlier in this story that I'm telling you right now. She was one of the people who responded to this entire situation initially, right? So according to Officer Ricci, she was dispatched to the stadium at around the same time after police received the report that an athlete had been stabbed. The suspect was once again described as a black male wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt and blue sweatpants. And all these different accounts are important, especially in the arrest report, which tells us what initially happened in the story, right? So that's why I'm kind of sharing different accounts from that particular day. And Officer Ricci wrote that she responded with lights and sirens and arrived at the scene at approximately 10:05 a.m. When she got there, she approached the track and field area and saw Officer Cortez kneeling next to Karmelo Anthony, who at that point was already in handcuffs and seated on the sidewalk near the entrance to the track. According to Officer Ricci, Officer Cortez told her that Anthony was the alleged suspect in this situation right here. Now, from the perspective of Officer Ricci, this is what she said, right? She said while they were walking Anthony to the car, Karmelo at that point made another spontaneous statement. He allegedly asked if what happened could be considered self-defense. And then the officer says she told him she did not know what happened. And then at that point, she also noted that the camera inside the patrol car had been activated before Karmelo was placed inside. And she took a photograph of Karmelo's hands with her department-issued camera and later uploaded that photo to the crime scene folder. Now, there was also another officer who responded to this entire situation, right? His name was Sergeant Will Otis. And according to his supplemental report, Karmelo was once again described as a black male wearing a gray hoodie and blue sweatpants. However, he also added in that he was possibly in Centennial High School clothing. And it turns out that he was actually a student at that particular high school. And this is kind of when we get into the specifics of what really happened, right? So let's keep going. Now, Sergeant Otis wrote that the incident had taken place on the visitor side of the stadium, near the north side bleachers, where the victim was under the Memorial High School tent. And by the time he got there, both of the officers, Cortez and Ricci, they were already walking Karmelo away from the stadium. Now, according to this officer, he said that the suspect, Karmelo, right, he was crying hysterically. Now, let's talk about the environment, okay, because this is very important. Around that same time, the weather started to change, and heavy rain began coming down over the stadium. Now, because Austin was still being treated, the staff moved the Memorial High School tent to cover him and the emergency personnel working on Austin, right? And then at this point, when the officers then started using his city-issued phone to take crime scene photos, trying to preserve as much of the scene as possible because of the rain and the large number of people gathering around. Other officers began putting up crime scene tape and moving non-essential people out of the immediate area. Officers were also told that the knife used in the stabbing had been tossed and was believed to still be nearby. Eventually, one of the witnesses said they remembered seeing the knife on the bleachers. And according to the report, another officer, his name is Charles, located the knife between rows 9 and 10 near seat 30, close to the aisle. The report says the knife was partially open, meaning the blade appeared to be at least partially exposed when the officers found it. And because of the rain that was starting to come down at this point, they decided to not move the knife right away. Instead, they covered it with a large blue tarp to preserve it as evidence. From there, Sergeant Otis helped preserve the crime scene while other personnel continued treating Austin and eventually transported him from the stadium. Now, the most detailed account of what allegedly happened comes from...
Okay. At 3600 hours, it states, after Karmelo was taken into custody, reports said he made statements to police indicating that he did do what he did to Austin, but that he claimed he was protecting himself. He reportedly said things along the lines of, Austin put his hands on me and he had told him not to. That became central to the defense. Karmelo admitted the fact, but claimed self-defense. I just keep asking myself, why was there a weapon anywhere? Why didn't you just knuckle up and you guys handle it out under the tent? Or why didn't you just walk away? Or why, when Karmelo walked in the tent and Metcalf known that they were all trying to get out of the rain, and Karmelo's school, Centennial, didn't have its own tent. So those students were just scurrying around trying to get shelter. Why didn't Metcalf just say, okay, brother, come on inside, get this shelter, the rain subside, and then we all go back to where we go, So why did he have to address him, be confrontational, tell the young man to get out, get out? Is that a reason? Hell no. That is not what I'm saying. It's just a build up to the case, what took place. Do I believe Karmelo came in there with the thoughts of, oh, when I get under this tent, this is going to happen? No. First of all, they had the track meet. He had no clue it was going to rain. He did not know Metcalf at all. They all was running. Everybody that was in the track meet, the reports state that everybody was scurrying to try to get shelter. All the other schools that were at the meet had shelter. They had their own tents, but Centennial didn't. Why? I don't know. But they did. So you had some of Centennial students that were going in other tents. They were okay. They were fine. And then you have Karmelo, who ended up under this tent and was told to get out. Is it a crime that they asked him to leave? No. Should he have maybe just left and went to hindsight is 2020 at this point. So it says the prosecution did not dispute that a confrontation happened. Their position was that the incident was not legally justified. So the legal question was not simply, did Karmelo do what he did to Austin? The legal question became, was it actual murder? Was it self-defense or something else? So, Chad, do you think admitting the act but claiming self-defense helps a defendant because they are being honest, or hurts them because they admit what happened? Let's keep going, you guys.
Officer Taylor Wetzel's supplemental report. According to Officer Wetzel, he responded to the stadium after dispatch notes said an athlete had been stabbed in the chest. So at this point of the story, we know that Austin was stabbed in the chest. And they also said that Austin Metcalf at that point was unconscious and not breathing. And now they finally confirmed that Karmelo, who was the suspect at this point, right, he believed to be a Centennial High School student. So now it was confirmed that he was a high school student of this particular high school. And then now we get into witnesses. When one of the officers, Wetzel, arrived at 10:06 a.m., he went towards the visitors' bleachers, where dispatch said the victim, Austin, was located. And while he was walking toward the bleachers, he was approached by a witness who said he had seen what happened. And then this witness told Officer Wetzel that the stabbing happened under the Memorial High School pop-up tent in the visitors' bleachers. Now, according to witness accounts, Austin Metcalf was sitting under the Memorial High School tent with his team. Karmelo Anthony, who was from Centennial High School, was also sitting under that same tent. And then Austin allegedly told Karmelo that he needed to move out from under their team's tent. That's when, according to the witness, Karmelo grabbed his bag, opened it, reached inside, and told Austin, "Touch me and see what happens." The witness said nobody really thought Karmelo had any weapons in his bag, and this is when things escalate. Austin then allegedly touched Karmelo, and according to the witness, Karmelo told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Karmelo to tell him to move, and that is when, according to this particular witness, Karmelo pulled out what the witness remembered as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest. After the stabbing, the witness said Karmelo ran away. Austin then began grabbing his chest and telling everyone to get help. The police at this point made contact with Hunter Metcalf, who was Austin's brother, and another witness who had been nearby. And they're, of course, very, sad about what had happened. They're breathing heavily and crying because of what had happened to Austin. And then there was a witness there with his brother, with Austin's brother, right, who was speaking to the police, and they were giving them way more information than anyone else at the scene. And they said that they were sitting in the bleachers under the Memorial High School tent when another male, someone he did not know, walked over and sat under the tent. And then according to this witness, Austin Metcalf then told the male that because he did not go to Memorial, this high school, he had to leave the tent. And the witness said that Austin and the male, who of course was Karmelo, they were kind of going back and forth, and then Austin stood up and pushed the male to get out the tent. And then they also added in that this is when Karmelo was kind of like reaching around his bag, and then they reiterated that he took out a knife, stabbed Austin, and then he left the scene. So at this point in the story, we've gotten a lot of perspective and a lot of witness accounts on exactly what happened. We know who was there, and we know what exactly happened. And it's at this point that they talk a little more about the victim in this case, right? Austin Metcalf. He was being treated by Frisco.
I believe that part of the story was that the coach specifically asked Austin to be the leader for the day, or he had the personality of a leader, and I believe that this coach knew that he might have been a little hot-headed, because for him to take this action makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense for Austin to be aggressive to someone who is just getting shelter. So that tells you a lot about his personality. Like I said, does his personality or his moral compass, should it be a reason for him to be deleted? Hell no. Hell no. This little boy should still be here amongst the living, period. Period. So
Fire Department personnel and athletic trainers. Now, at this point, medical personnel were actively performing life-saving measures on Austin, and they were still working on the scene, talking to people, trying to figure out what happened. And Austin, at this point, was transported to the hospital. And then the ambulance arrived at the hospital at 10:46 a.m. that morning with Austin, and doctors immediately tried to treat him in the emergency room. But just 7 minutes later, at 10:53 a.m., Dr. Chow pronounced Austin deceased. After Austin was pronounced dead, hospital staff stopped treatment, and then another officer, Newton, then took possession of the clothing Austin had been wearing and maintained custody of those items until crime scene investigators took over. Officers and investigators also documented the scene at the hospital with photos, and Austin's clothing was collected as evidence. Later that afternoon, Austin's family was allowed into the room to view him. At 3:15 p.m., the transport service for the medical examiner arrived and took possession of Austin's body. The arrest report also notes that later that morning, another witness came to the Frisco Police Department lobby and said he had seen the stabbing. He was given a voluntary witness statement form and later spoke with detectives. Now, the final pages of the arrest report show how officers began separating witnesses and preserving what they could after the stabbing. And it was also noted that multiple coaches came forward. 2 coaches said they heard Karmelo confessed to stabbing Austin, while other coaches said they witnessed the actual incident. So there are a bunch of people who seen what happened here as well. That's very important. So that's all the very important information from that particular day, at least based on the arrest report. Now, when you say with all that, the whole situation is just sad, right? I mean, you're talking about a high school track meet. Kids are supposed to be competing, coaches are supposed to be coaching, families are supposed to be watching from the stands. And by the end of that morning, one teenager was dead, another teenager was in handcuffs, and everybody who was there had to live with what they saw. And I think that's what makes this case so heavy. Before it became a headline, before it became a racial debate, this was a real life tragedy involving 2 teenagers, right? And one of those teenagers killed another one. That is a fact. Austin Metcalf lost his life at 17 years old. His family lost a son, a brother, and someone they clearly loved. And Karmelo Anthony, who was also 17 at the time, went from being a high school student at a track meet to being accused of murder and facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison. So the outcome of the situation, very permanent. And based on all the information up until this point, the entire thing seems to have escalated from a situation that should have never gotten anywhere close to that point. Now, obviously, the arrest report is not the same thing as...
Now, 4,200 hours to 4,800 hours. Social media, public reaction went insane, you guys. So after the incident, the case exploded online. Okay. So there was so many different opinions. There was, the media was the court of law in this case. It truly, truly was. So people took sides quickly. Some focused on Austin as the victim whose life was taken. Others focused on Karmelo, self-defense, claiming whether race, media coverage, or public pressures affected how people viewed the case. Okay. Race became part of the public conversation because Karmelo is an African-American male. Austin was Caucasian, but prosecution argued this case was about violence and accountability, not race. I agree. I completely agree 100%. This had nothing to do with race. In the public. But what happened under that tent, I don't know the heart of Austin, nor do I know the heart of Karmelo. So I can't tell you what they were thinking morally. I don't know. Okay. So this is why this case became bigger than... I have a visitor. Can you let her outside? Is there somebody downstairs? Let her outside and take her outside, please. So yes, sorry about that. This is a home studio, you guys. Like I've said before, even though this is a very serious case, I do have a dog out there. Tell Aaliyah to come get her, please. Leave it open and just tell Aaliyah to come get the dog. Come here. Sometimes she just want her mama. So, hold on, let me move this down. Oh, which way am I going? This way. Sorry. Let me see. So we have, so this is why the case became bigger, because the media was the court of law. The media was the judges. It was too much media, social media talk, TikTok. It was just everywhere. That's why I didn't want to touch it initially, but I had gotten a couple of YouTube requests. So if you need me to review anything, I definitely will. Just put it into the chat or DM. Okay, call her. She's not gonna come with you. So chat. We can acknowledge race became a part of the public conversation. That's what I was saying. It became a part of the public conversation without automatically deciding the race explains everything. I don't think that it does. There are two different things here. Sometimes we rush to that. It's always race. Stop. Thank you. So yes, it became a part of the public conversation, but do I believe that this was it when that boy walked and said, no, I don't. Okay.
Even began. So at that point, the case was no longer just being argued in court documents. It was being argued online. People were debating Karmelo's character. People were debating Austin's death. People were debating race. People were debating self-defense. And people were arguing whether the public support for Karmelo had gone too far. One of the biggest examples of that was the fundraiser set up for Karmelo's legal defense. Within weeks, it had raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, with reports saying it eventually passed way over $500,000. And that became another big point here to Karmelo's supporters.
And anybody that's ever been on jury duty, now I actually was a part of a case, and that's one of the things they tell you not to do. Do not look at the news. Do not read social media. Do not talk about the case when we're not in the, we're not being in the it's a word for it too, where the jury, I was in on the case of a molestation case from a stepdad and whatever, but, but being at the internet, it's just no way that any of those people on that jury did not turn on their cell phone and was not on the front of their screen, TV, anywhere. It was there. Yes. Thank you so much. Okay, let's keep going, you guys.
The money represented support for a teenager they believed deserved a fair defense. And then to critics, it felt disturbing to see that much money raised for someone accused of killing a 17-year-old at a school event. So to a lot of people here, Karmelo was a teenager being overcharged after what they believed was self-defense. To other people, he was just a person accused of taking a young man's life and receiving way too much empathy. Now, on June 24, 2025, the case officially moved forward. And that's when Karmelo
Thank you, GZDR4EZ sequestered. I appreciate that. Thank you.
was indicted for first-degree murder and the stabbing death of Austin Metcalf. So legally, the indictment meant prosecutors believed they had enough evidence to move forward with a murder case. And from that point, the question became even bigger. Not just what happened under that tent, but whether Karmelo Anthony's claim of self-defense would hold up in court. Now, before we go deeper at this point in the video, and the legal case and everything that happened after this, I think it's important to actually talk about Austin Metcalf as well, right? Because sometimes when cases like this become national stories, the person who lost their life almost becomes a name attached to a headline and they kind of get forgotten, which is something that I don't really like. It doesn't really matter where you stand on this particular case. At the end of the day, don't forget that this was a person, a young man who was very, very young who got killed here, right? He got killed here. That's not an argument of was it self-defense or murder. We'll get to that in the end. But at the same time, he was killed here. That is a fact. So Austin was 17 years old. He was a junior at Memorial High School in Frisco, Texas. He was an athlete, a football player, a track and field competitor. And
This is extreme. This is so heartbreaking to me. This is why I had to let time go past, because this boy did not deserve what happened to him. I don't care. I don't get caught up in that race crap. I get caught up in what's right and what is wrong. Why the hell was there a weapon? Period.
according to reports, his father described him as an honor student, a natural leader, and a talented athlete. He played linebacker for Memorial High School, and by all accounts, he was someone who had a very bright future ahead of him. Austin also had a twin brother named Hunter. And keep in mind, his brother was actually there that day, right? He witnessed what happened, and reports describe how close these two brothers were. Later, after Austin's death, Hunter even accepted Austin's diploma on his behalf during the school's graduation ceremony. So when we talk about this case, at the center of the story is a 17-year-old kid who never made it home from a school event. Let's just sit with that for a second, okay? This young man had a lot more life left to live. Now, while Austin's family was grieving, Karmelo Anthony's family was also trying to control the way people saw their son. Because once this case became national news, Karmelo wasn't just being looked at as a teenager who had been arrested. He became the face of a much bigger conversation. Some people looked at the arrest report and saw someone who took another teenager's life over something that should have never escalated this far. But then his family and supporters, they're really trying to vouch for him and say that this was not who he was before that day. Now, Karmelo Anthony's murder trial is officially ongoing right now. And at the center of this trial is one question. Was this self-defense or was this murder? He's of course pleaded not guilty, and his defense is expected to argue that he acted to protect himself. The prosecutors are going to have to convince the jury that this was not justified self-defense, and what happened under that tent legally qualifies as murder. So a jury is going to have to look at the evidence and decide whether Karmelo Anthony's actions were legally justified or whether he crossed a line that cost Austin Metcalf.
Well, actually, it's over right now. Obviously, this video was made prior to him being sentenced. He has been found guilty. He's found guilty. I think he was giving 35 years. So when we look at the full timeline, this case started with rain, confusion, a teen tent, confrontation between two teenagers, and a weapon that should never have been part of a school track meet. That's what gets me. Why are we bringing weapons to school? Austin Metcalf lost his life. His family would never be the same, you guys. Karmelo Anthony was convicted and sentenced to 35 years. His family will never be the same either. Two children lost their lives. This is why we have to talk about conflict, ego, weapons, school safety, supervision, and how fast a small confrontation can become permanent. So, chat, do you believe this was a deletion or self-defense? I will say it's stupidity and was unnecessary. But before I end this live, you know, I want to just offer up a prayer. So, Lord, we come to you tonight with heavy hearts. We pray for the family of Austin Metcalf, who lost his life, and it was taken way too soon, Lord. We ask you to cover them with comfort, strength, and peace that only you can give to this family, Lord. We also pray for Karmelo's family as well and everyone affected by this case. Lord, where there is pain, bring healing. Where there's anger, Lord, bring peace and bring also wisdom. Where there is division, let's bring some understanding. Also, Lord, please bless the Viral Crimes family tonight. Help us speak with compassion, listen with respect, and remember that behind every case, there are real people, families, and real pain. Guide our words, guide our hearts, and let this conversation bring awareness, not harm, to anyone that is listening. And I ask you to protect all viewers of this channel in the name of Jesus. Amen. So I'd like to end with that because prayer is needed for everyone. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, everyone that's on this chat. I appreciate you. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. We're live on Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and Patreon. So, you guys, next time, come over here. Don't meet us there. Beat us there. Everything. Listen, I got to show you that I still got these hands. I still got these paws. You putting paws on me, I'm putting paws back. I promise you.
And shaken. Officers rushed to the scene and were met by a visibly distressed daughter standing outside the residence.
I didn't take her down, bro. She keep hitting me, bro. My mama keep hitting me, bro.
Hold on. You need medics?
Oh, please take her. Please take her, bro.
What happened?
What's going on this morning?